My wife got a positive STD test after attending her friend's wedding, so I served her with divorce papers. When people say one moment can change your life, they probably mean mine. I'm amazed at how one small piece of paper discovered in my wife's purse changed everything. I'm 37, and I married my college sweetheart 10 years ago. We dated for 6 years, so we've known each other for 16 years. I'll call her Dove. She's 37. She was my college classmate, and I consider her my soulmate. She was also my colleague's friend, and she was getting married in Las Vegas a month ago. I was invited to the wedding, but I had something urgent at work that same week, so I couldn't go. It was a big event that lasted for a week. When Dove came back from the wedding, she was unusually quiet. I asked her if everything was fine, and she said she was just tired after the week, after the long wedding festivities. I gave her the space she needed to wind down. However, I started to worry when Dove's behavior changed. She became quiet and irritated with me. She ignored me and got agitated in every conversation. Our sex life almost disappeared. Whenever I initiated, she snapped at me and said she wasn't in the mood. It's been almost a month since she returned from the wedding, and we haven't had one intimate moment together. On top of that, I found something in her bag yesterday that's made me anxious. It was a hospital bill. Dove had done an STD test just the next day after returning from the wedding. Why would she do that, and why didn't she tell me about it? I know it means something, but I'm not ready to confront her about it yet. I just want to have all the information about the STD test. I don't want to confront her with any I value my marriage and my relationship with Dove, and I don't want to damage it impulsively. I've done a lot of research on this topic and came across a page where several men and women shared their experiences of discovering their partner had undergone an STD test. STD tests are often related to cheating, which is why I'm here to share my story and see if I'm overreading between the lines. I'm feeling guilty to admit this, but I also sneaked into Dove's phone a few days ago. I scrolled through all her chat lists and call records, but couldn't find anything. I checked her phone and social media, and there was nothing untoward. I don't know whether I should doubt her or be reassured that I'm being paranoid. I thought of contacting the friends who attended the wedding with Dove to check if anything unusual had happened. The thing is, it was a wedding of one of Dove's school friends, so none of our college friends were there. I'm friends with her school friend, but not to the extent that I can ask anything from them without Dove's knowledge. It's all a bit weird because in the last 10 years of being together with Dove, I've never had any reason to suspect her. We've always been very open with each other. I forgot to mention that the bill showed she made the appointment the day after she got back from her trip. But the date of the test was yesterday, and the date of the report is given after. I've been a bit concerned about Dove's behavior for the past week or so since she got back from her trip. I checked her phone a few days ago but couldn't find anything. When Dove got back from the test yesterday, she looked really tired and stressed. I started to wonder what was going on when she carefully hid her bag in the wardrobe, which is usually where she leaves it. I put it on the table of the couch. I acted like I didn't notice it, but I was keeping a close eye on her when she went to the bathroom for a shower. I checked her purse and found the hospital bill for the STD test. Hello everyone. After reading the comments on my post, I realized I didn't give any background. I didn't think it was relevant to the post, but I've added a few facts about me and Dove in the comments section. We both graduated from the same college, we're both software engineers, and we work for different IT companies. We have a 6-year-old daughter. A year. We had a pretty good life financially. We were a happy family until Dove decided to mess things up after finding the STD test bill in her purse. I was restless after reading the comments on my last post and hearing other people's stories. It seemed like Dove had cheated on me. I wanted to wait until the test results came back before talking to her, but I was getting really upset inside. Dove noticed too. She noticed that I was acting differently on the day I made the post. She even asked me if everything was okay. I just nodded and smiled. She thought that maybe I was retaliating for her rude behavior. So a day after I made my post, we sat at the dinner table as we started eating. She asked me again if I was doing well. I nodded yes, but after a while I couldn't hold back and I blurted out, "How was your STD test?" She looked at me shocked. I repeated, "Yeah, that STD test you took a few days back." She turned, she was pale, and asked me how I found out. I said it didn't matter. Then she said the most classic line. I stared at her and told her to explain. She sighed and took a deep breath, while I kept staring at her patiently. She started crying the moment she started sobbing. I knew my suspicions were true. Dove held my hand and told me to believe her. I told her I could believe her only if she said anything, but instead of saying anything, she pulled her chair closer. She leaned on my shoulder and cried into my arms. I've been there for her for the last 16 years, supporting her through thick and thin. Even when she was upset, I was there to comfort her. But this time, I was unmoved. She tried to come closer and hold my arms, but I didn't reciprocate. I sat there, cold and distant, like an iceberg. Finally, when she was done crying, she confessed everything. It all happened on her friend's bachelor trip during the week. The first 2 days of the wedding celebrations were a bachelor trip to Vegas. The event manager had arranged for strippers, male escorts, and so on. I learned a lot of new terms that I wasn't familiar with before. She told me that the bride and her other friends enjoyed all the services right from the start on day one. But Dove resisted her friends' advances. She saw the bride and her other friends having a thrilling time fulfilling all their fantasies with those escorts. But she restrained herself. I usually believed her, as she was never a liar. This time, though, it was difficult for me to fully trust her story. I asked her if she did it because she said she felt out of place. Her friend told her she'd never seen anyone else in 16 years, so she needed to try something new. Her friends explained how the escorts used different techniques to give them new experiences. Dove still didn't give in, but her friend convinced her to get an intimate massage. She finally gave in to the pressure and agreed to the massage. She thought it wouldn't be cheating, and that she could avoid the pressure by doing the massage. However, the masseur was an escort. After the back massage, she started undressing. She resisted, but he said it was an intimate massage, so she had to undress. She confessed to losing control. She gave in to the massage, and before she knew it, she cheated on me. But that wasn't the end of it. When Dove told her friends about her encounter with the masseur, they encouraged her to keep exploring. They also reassured Dove that it would be confidential. They promised that nothing would ever reach me. Dove thought she'd already done so, and she'd cheated on me, so there was no point in resisting. She decided to explore her fantasy further. I was glad that she'd been honest about everything. She knew I wouldn't be happy about it, even if she didn't think I would. I just sat there, trying to take it all in. I knew my life was going to change. The woman in front of me was the love of my life, and that was why her betrayal hurt so much. Dove nudged me to say something, as I hadn't spoken since she'd confessed. I buried my face in my palms, and she tried to hold my hand and lift my face, but I resisted. Finally, when I looked at her, I said I was going to file for divorce. She was shocked. She said I shouldn't make a rash decision because we have a son. I told her to stop pretending to care about our son and her family. If she cared about them, she wouldn't have done what she did. I took my car keys and left the house. She tried to follow me, but I brushed her off. I drove to my friend's place, who was living alone. He recently got divorced. Anyway, I drank until I passed out the next morning. I called in sick at work. My friend I went to the office while I lounged on his couch searching for the divorce lawyers. I found a lawyer who was my junior in school and added him to my Instagram account. He responded within a couple of hours, so I messaged him again. I asked for a call, and he called me back within 30 minutes. His next available appointment slot was about 4 days later, but since I knew him, he asked if I could meet him late in the evening after work. I readily agreed. Instead of calling me at his office, he asked me to meet for a drink on the last evening. Dove Confessor was cheating, and the next evening, I was sitting with my lawyer and discussing my divorce. He asked me to sleep on my decision and see if my emotions subsided. I decided to give her a chance. I told him that I was mindfully making this decision. I relayed my divorce terms to him, and he assured me of starting the paperwork immediately. I requested him to fast-track the process because I want to get it done with as soon as possible. Anyone who heard me would have assumed I was making an impulsive decision, but I was not. I loved Dove, but not more than my self-respect. I told him that I trusted Dove with my life and that I couldn't let her get away with cheating. The next day, I went home in the afternoon, thinking she'd be at work, but she was at home. She'd become miserable. Over the last few days, as soon as she saw me, she rushed towards me and tried to hug me. She asked where I had been for the last 2 days and why I hadn't responded to her calls and messages. I wanted to push her away, but she looked so pale and fragile that I couldn't. I let her hug me, but I didn't touch her. I just stood there. She kept saying sorry, but I didn't respond. She held my face with her palms and nudged me to say something. She said my silence was killing her. I asked about her son. She said she dropped him off at my parents' house for a few days. I got away from her and went too. I went to my room and locked the door. If I'd let her in, she would have stopped me from packing. I took some clothes, my laptop and other essentials, and left the house while she was in the kitchen. She followed me outside, trying to stop me, but I didn't look back and drove off. I checked into a hotel. I went to my parents' house to meet my son. I wanted to tell him everything, but I resisted because I had something else in mind. It's been almost a week now, and I'm working from the hotel. I've been given permission to work remotely for this month. Dove has been trying to contact me through all possible means, calls, texts, and voicemails. They've been showing up at my workplace, crashing at my friend's place, and at local bars and restaurants that I often visit. One of our common friends called me today and asked if I was fine. He said that Dove had been looking for me all over the city. I asked him if she had told. He said that whoever is asking Dove has been telling them that I left the house after a severe argument about something I said. Yes, I'm safe, but I needed some time to cool off. A few hours ago I called my lawyer to follow up regarding the divorce papers. He said to have it shipped to me in the next few days. I'm waiting until the divorce papers arrive. I'll make an update once I sort out this case. It took a while for me to update this, but I wanted to sort out everything before making an update. This would be my last update. So after 10 days on the day the divorce papers arrived, it was Saturday. The next morning, I went to my house. Dove was lying on the couch, and my son was playing in the living room. He ran towards me and hugged me. We hadn't met in the last week, so this was a surprise. She was stiff, and she didn't hug me back. Instead, she gave me a cold stare. I spent a few minutes playing with my son before leaving him to it and sitting down in the chair. Dove looked at me with a straight face and asked what I wanted. I just smirked at her question and didn't say anything. She asked if there was anything she could do to make things better. Things are better now. I stayed silent for a while. She said, I know I hurt you and ruined everything, but I'm guilty. I accept that what I did was wrong, but you need to understand that I could have skipped the STD test and you would never have known about it. But I took a test for her. I want to make sure you're safe and avoid any sexual contact to protect you. I love you and I'm sorry for what I did, but you also need to acknowledge that I'm being honest with you when I could have easily lied. Let's work through this together instead of avoiding it. Tell me if there's anything I can do to help. To resolve this, I suggested she confess her infidelity to her parents and mine. She gave me a stern look. I said, you can't just do it. You have to do it right. She took a deep breath and said that if it would make her happy and satisfy her, she was ready to take a shot. I asked her to. She went on to invite them over that evening. After staring at me for a couple of minutes and seeing the coldness in my eyes, she took her phone and called up her parents and mine one by one, asking them to join us. After the call, she looked at me with defeated eyes. I took a shower and went online. I was on my iPad when she came into the room and said she'd prepared lunch for us. I didn't want to eat it, but I knew it was going to be our last meal as a family, so I went and sat at the table she'd set for me and my son. We all ate it together, and I felt bad seeing my son's face. It was the last time he was having a meal with his parents. I know I'd be called an egotist and chauvinist for destroying my happy family over just one mistake by Dove, but I don't care what others think of me. I know that when my son grows up, he'll be glad that I chose myself. I believe it's important to show respect over love and emotions. Ideally, a child should grow up with happy parents, even if they live separately. However, it's also important to avoid being in a broken marriage. Our marriage was going through a rough patch when Dove had sex with other men after lunch. She took her son to his room for an afternoon nap after putting him to sleep. When she returned to I was on my phone in the bedroom when she tried to touch me. I stopped her and asked if she'd had the STD report. She said she'd come clean and started touching me again, knowing it would be our last time. I gave in, and it was the most thrilling sex we'd had in a long time. After we were done, I felt guilty and sad, but also satisfied to be with her. She was the only woman I'd been with. I'd been with her for 16 years. I loved her, and it broke my heart to think I was going to push her away forever. I also regretted having sex with her because it would have given her hope of reconciliation. She fell asleep on my arms, like she hadn't slept for many nights. I looked at her face and wondered how she could do this to us. I don't know when I dozed off. While we were off in a daze, staring at her pretty face, we woke up when her son knocked on the door. I opened it for him, and he played with us on the bed. It was such a blissful moment. I really felt like retreating from my decision and giving another chance to my marriage, but I suppressed it and went out of bed. It was already evening. I sat in the living room waiting for my parents and in-laws to arrive. After a while, my parents arrived. Dove called me into the kitchen and asked me with a serious look if I really wanted to do this. I said yes. She then went outside and told everyone that she had something to confess. She told them that she had cheated on me at her friend's wedding, but it didn't mean anything. She said that she loved me and could do anything for me. She went on to say, she said she'd told me about it and wanted me to tell everyone. It all happened so fast that my parents thought it was a prank. I told them it wasn't, and that she hadn't confessed when I found the STD test in her purse. My parents were also disappointed, but they didn't say anything. I told everyone that I also had. I had to tell her something, and it was that I had filed for divorce. I pulled out the divorce papers and started reading the terms of the divorce. Dove tried to interrupt me, but I continued. I gave her the house, in which she and my son could live while I moved out. We would both have joint custody of our son, and I would pay my share of the child's report. After reading it, I handed over the papers to her. She gave me a look that seemed to say she was disgusted, and then she signed them. She looked disgusted and said I'd tricked her. She glanced through the papers and signed them right away. Her parents stood up and left immediately without saying a word. My parents also left, but while they were leaving, they asked if I wanted to move in with them for a while. I nodded and said I would. Dove went to her son's room and locked it from the inside. Not only did she feel humiliated in front of her parents and in front of her son, but she also felt defeated. I felt like I was breaking the law, but I also felt defeated. All those confessions and humiliations were for nothing. I packed my remaining stuff and left the house. I wanted to meet my son, but I knew Dove wouldn't let me. That was the reason she had locked herself in his room. After that evening, I didn't get any calls or texts from Dove. After about 45 days, we were presented in court. Our divorce was settled amicably. We both said we hadn't spoken to each other since the divorce. It's been over a week now. I've been busy finding a house and settling in. We might cross paths because of our son, but it'll be only transactional. I still feel empty and frustrated because I know I've also hurt her and humiliated her. Maybe we both got what we deserved.